The bar was nearly empty, swallowed by the deep silence that settles over small-town places after midnight. The flickering neon sign outside cast a bluish glow through the grimy windows, painting ghostly patterns across the cracked linoleum floor. A jukebox somewhere in the corner muttered an old country song, its voice faint and distant, like a half-remembered dream. John Mason sat alone at the far end of the bar, nursing a glass of bourbon that had long since lost its warmth. His baseball cap was pulled low, shielding the sharp angles of a face marked by time and experience. His eyes, though tired, were steady, observing, calculating, keeping something carefully hidden beneath layers of quiet. He was a man who wanted nothing more than to be invisible, not just to the world around him, but to the ghosts that clung to his mind like shadows, the memories of war, of missions too dangerous to be spoken aloud, the weight of sacrifices made in silence. He'd left the military years ago, walked away from the medals, the ceremonies, and the constant buzz of adrenaline. Thought he could leave the past behind in the desert dust, in the jungle's suffocating heat, in the endless nights filled with danger and fear. But peace, John knew, was a fragile illusion. The war never really ends. It follows you like a shadow in the fading light, waiting for the moment to reveal itself. The door creaked open, and a cold gust swept in, carrying the scent of rain and something else, something electric, like the pulse before a storm. A young man stepped inside, his boots clicking softly against the wooden floor. He wore the kind of calm confidence that only comes from discipline and training, a presence that seemed out of place in a bar so worn down by time. John barely glanced up, focused on the amber liquid swirling in his glass, but the kid's eyes locked onto the faint glimpse of ink beneath the veteran's rolled-up sleeve. Tattoo, not just any tattoo, a trident wrapped in flames, the iconic mark of the Navy SEALs. The young man froze. The bar's stale air seemed to thicken, the dim lights flickered, and the jukebox's tune stuttered like a broken record. Recognition hit him like a freight train. In that instant, everything changed. The past crashed through the veil of time. John felt it, the silent bond between warriors who had walked through hell and come back. A bond stronger than words, stronger than years. The kid didn't move, his eyes wide with disbelief. The trident wasn't just a symbol, it was a lifetime carved into skin. Brotherhood, sacrifice, survival. John finally met his gaze. Not many people see this anymore, he said quietly. The kid swallowed hard. I didn't expect to find someone like you here. John smirked. Nobody looks for the forgotten. But this night was about to rewrite everything John thought he knew about hiding away. Because the young SEAL wasn't just any stranger. He was the bridge to a world John thought he'd left behind forever. The kid sat down beside him, voice low, careful. I'm Ryan. Just graduated SEAL training last month. Heard stories about the veterans who came before us. Legends. John's smile faded, replaced by a shadow of sorrow. Legends don't always get remembered right. Ryan's eyes flicked to the window, watching the rain start to fall in slow, steady drops. I've got the same tattoo, he said, but I don't know if I'll ever live up to it. John leaned back, the weight of his years pressing down, like the wooden stool beneath him. You're not alone in that. For a long moment, neither spoke. The bar's clock ticked away the seconds, counting down to something neither could name. Then Ryan's voice broke the silence, trembling slightly. Tell me what it was really like. The missions no one talks about. John's gaze darkened, haunted by memories too sharp to forget. The missions buried deep in classified files and silence. But maybe, just maybe, it was time. He looked at the kid, at the burning eagerness in his eyes. All right, John said, voice steady but low. But be warned. What I'm about to tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. And so, under the flickering neon lights, surrounded by shadows and the hum of an old jukebox, John Mason began to tell the story he thought no one would ever hear again. The story of brotherhood, of betrayal, of sacrifice, and of a fight that didn't end when the bullets stopped flying. The war zone wasn't just a place on the map. It was a living nightmare etched in every nerve ending. The sun-baked dust of Afghanistan's valleys burned the skin, but the real fire was inside. The fear, the adrenaline, the constant fight for survival. John's unit was deep behind enemy lines, tasked with a mission so covert, it wasn't even in the official records. A rescue operation. Extraction of a high-value target. The kind of job that leaves no room for error. He remembered the silence before the storm. The way the desert held its breath, waiting. The team moved like shadows, every step calculated, every breath measured. John's heart pounded in rhythm with his footsteps. His eyes scanned the horizon, alert to the faintest movement. And then, the ambush. The air exploded with gunfire and shouts. John dove, rolling behind a jagged rock, the roar of bullets tearing the sky apart. He saw his brothers fall, one by one, each moment a knife twisting in his soul, but he fought on, because that's what they did. They fought for each other, for the men who couldn't, for the mission. The battle lasted hours, each minute stretching into eternity. John's hands shook as he fired, the weight of loss heavy on his chest. When it was over, silence returned. The dust settled, revealing the cost. John was one of the few left standing, but the scars ran deeper than the skin. Back in that bar, the young SEAL listened, eyes wide with awe and sorrow. Ryan's voice cracked. "How did you keep going?" John looked down at his tattoo, tracing the faded ink with a finger. "Because I had to. Because they were counting on me. Because some things are bigger than fear." They sat in silence again, the past and present merging. For John, it was a rare moment of peace. For Ryan, a glimpse into the legacy he was now a part of. The tattoo wasn't just ink. It was a story, a promise, a brotherhood that never dies. This was only the beginning. The night still held secrets, and the war's shadow was far from gone. But for John Mason, the veteran who thought no one would recognize him, the tattoo had spoken, and it had found its way home. The rain outside picked up, drumming a steady rhythm against the cracked windows. Inside, the dim bar felt worlds away from the storm. But for John Mason, the storm was never just outside. It had been inside him for years, a raging tempest of memories, regrets, and unfinished business. Ryan sat closer now, the initial shock replaced by an intense curiosity. "What happened after the mission?" he asked quietly, voice low enough not to disturb the few other patrons scattered around the room. John stared into his glass, swirling the last of his bourbon. The amber liquid caught the light, reminding him of sunsets on distant hills, places he wished he could forget but never could. That mission, it wasn't just about saving one man, John began, his voice heavy with the weight of what he was about to share. It was about stopping something far bigger, a shadow war within a war. Ryan leaned in, his eyes searching. "What do you mean?" John exhaled slowly, feeling the old familiar ache behind his ribs. "We uncovered a network, deep and dangerous, trafficking secrets and weapons that could destabilize entire regions. Our job was to cut off the head of the snake." The room seemed to shrink, the air thicker, as if the walls themselves were listening. "The team was elite, the best of the best," John continued, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But even the best don't always get out clean. We lost a lot that night." Ryan's face tightened, his hands clenching on the table. "How do you live with that?" John looked up sharply, eyes meeting Ryan's. "You don't, not really. You learn to carry it, like a heavy pack strapped to your back." The young SEAL swallowed hard. "I've trained for the physical pain, the endurance. But the weight you carry in here." He tapped his chest. "I'm not sure I'm ready for that." John nodded slowly. "Nobody is. That's why you need brothers. People who know the cost. People who won't let you fall apart." A silence fell between them again, filled with unspoken truths. Then Ryan asked the question John had been avoiding. "Did you ever think about quitting? Walking away?" John's eyes darkened. "Every damn day. But every time I thought about it, I remembered why I started. The guys who never made it back. The ones counting on me to finish the fight." He paused, voice thick. "Sometimes the war doesn't end because you have to protect something bigger. A future. a family, a promise. Ryan's expression softened, a new respect growing in his eyes. I want to be ready for that, to carry that weight. John reached over and placed a firm hand on Ryan's shoulder. You will be. But it's not just about strength, it's about heart. And knowing you're never truly alone. The jukebox switched to a slower song, its melancholy notes filling the space between them. Outside, the rain began to slow, but inside, a new bond was forming, forged by shared pain and understanding. John took a deep breath, feeling the knot inside him loosen just a little. Tomorrow, he said quietly, I'll show you something. Something that might change the way you see this whole life. Ryan's eyes lit up with curiosity and anticipation. For the first time in years, John Mason felt a flicker of hope. Because maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't over yet. The next morning, the sun peeked through thick gray clouds, casting a cold, diffused light over the quiet streets. John Mason and Ryan met outside the bar, the air still heavy with the scent of rain and earth. Ryan's expression was a mix of excitement and nerves, the kind of feeling that comes before stepping into something bigger than yourself. John glanced at him, then nodded toward a rugged truck parked nearby. Hop in. I want to take you somewhere. The engine roared to life, cutting through the stillness as they drove away from town. The landscape slowly changed from cracked pavement to gravel roads flanked by dense pine forests. The silence between them was comfortable, charged with unspoken questions. After nearly an hour, the truck pulled up to a remote compound nestled deep in the woods. The place looked abandoned at first, weathered fences, rusted gates, and peeling paint on the buildings. But there was something more beneath the surface. A quiet strength. John stepped out, motioning for Ryan to follow. This is where I train, where I found a way to keep fighting, not just for survival, but for something real. Ryan looked around, curiosity peaked. Train? What kind of training? John's eyes softened, a flicker of pride breaking through his stoic exterior. I train soldiers, real warriors, U.S. Army Rangers, preparing them for what lies ahead. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Ryan's jaw tightened. You've been training the Rangers? That's incredible. John nodded. It's my way of passing the torch. Making sure the next generation is ready. Because the world out there, it's not getting any easier. They entered a large building, the smell of oil and sweat mixing with the faint echo of distant gunfire from an outdoor range. Inside, the walls were lined with gear, maps, and photographs, snapshots of missions, of brothers lost and found. John led Ryan to a table where a faded photo lay under a glass case. It showed a younger John Mason, eyes fierce, standing shoulder to shoulder with his team, the faces of men who had fought and died for a cause bigger than themselves. Ryan traced the image with his finger, reverence clear on his face. These are the stories we don't hear about. John's voice dropped, heavy with memory. Most people want heroes to be legends, clean and perfect, but the truth is messy, painful, real. He paused, then reached into his jacket pocket, pulling out a small, worn notebook. This is where I write everything down. Every lesson, every failure, every victory, for the guys who can't tell their own story. Ryan took the notebook carefully, flipping through pages filled with scrawled notes, sketches, and mission details. This is priceless. John smiled faintly. It's a legacy, a map for those who follow. They stepped outside where a group of young men in fatigues were running drills, sprinting, crawling, firing at targets. Their faces were focused, determined. John's voice softened, full of respect. These kids, they're what keeps me going. The future. Ryan watched them, understanding dawning. It's more than just fighting. It's about preparing for the unknown. John nodded. Exactly. And it's not just about physical strength. It's about mental toughness, discipline, and heart. For a long moment, the two men stood silently, connected by a shared purpose. Then Ryan looked back at John. Thank you for showing me this, for trusting me. John's eyes held something rare, a quiet approval. You've got potential, kid. Just remember the hardest battles aren't always on the battlefield. As they drove back toward town, the weight on Ryan's shoulders felt different. Not lighter, but more focused, a sense of belonging, of direction. John glanced over, his gaze steady. Welcome to the Brotherhood. The road ahead was uncertain. The past lingered like a shadow, and the future held challenges neither could yet see. But together, they were ready to face whatever came next. The night had fallen thick and silent by the time John and Ryan returned to the town. The streetlights cast long shadows across empty sidewalks, and the only sound was the crunch of tires on gravel as John parked the truck near the bar. Inside, the warmth from the fireplace battled the chill that lingered in the corners. John poured 2 more glasses of bourbon and handed one to Ryan. The weight of everything they had shared hung heavily between them. Ryan looked up, eyes searching. John, why did you show me all that? The training? The past? John took a slow sip, gathering his thoughts. Because I want you to understand what it means to carry the legacy, the real cost of service. Most people see the medals, the stories in the papers, but they don't see the scars underneath, the battles that never end. Ryan swallowed hard, the magnitude settling in. I've always thought being a soldier was about courage and strength, but it's so much more, isn't it? John nodded. It's about resilience, about standing up even when the world wants to break you, about protecting something bigger than yourself, your brothers, your family, your values. The bar door creaked open, and a few familiar faces drifted in, locals who knew John but never quite understood the man behind the quiet veteran's smile. John caught their eyes but said nothing, the unspoken respect passing silently between them. Ryan leaned forward, voice steady. So, what now? What's next for you? John stared into his glass, eyes distant. I don't know. I thought my story was over years ago, but maybe it's just beginning. Maybe it's about helping others find their way, like you. A small smile tugged at Ryan's lips. Then let me help. Let me be part of that story. John looked up, meeting Ryan's gaze with something almost like hope. You're ready, more than you know. Outside, the rain began again, gentle and steady, a cleansing, a new start. John Mason, the veteran who once thought no one would recognize him, had found something far greater than fame or glory. He had found purpose, and a brother who would carry the torch forward. As the 2 men raised their glasses in a silent toast, the night held a promise that no matter the battles ahead, they would face them together. The tattoo that once marked John as a warrior now symbolized something deeper, a legacy of strength, sacrifice, and unbreakable bonds. And in that moment, the veteran finally understood he was never truly alone. The end.